In the superhero community, being mind-controlled or brainwashed happens so often that it's basically a rite of passage. As in, if you haven't been mind-controlled, then you're not a real superhero yet. Which may explain why Batman has been mind-controlled so many times, as he is one of the world's greatest heroes. And this video is going to look at the 5 best times that Batman has been mind-controlled. Justice League Unlimited. Now, this is a brief but dramatic bit of mind control. In this episode, Gorilla Grodd is trying to turn all the humans in the world into gorillas. Which is a pretty stupid master plan, quite frankly, but it's also kind of amusing, and in fairness, it would actually be pretty terrifying if he actually managed to pull it off. I mean, can you imagine just sitting where you are right now and suddenly turning into a gorilla? But anyway, Deadman is trying to stop him, but he is a ghost and can only talk to the League by possessing its members. So he takes over Superman's body and sets them off to stop the bad guys. Now they do manage to beat Grodd and his associates, and they save the world from living as gorillas. But after they've done all this, Black Manta is about to attack and no one sees him coming. No one except for Deadman, who takes over Batman's body and shoots Black Manta, killing him. Now, Deadman didn't actually mean to kill him, he just meant to disable him, but unfortunately he fell backwards into an electrical unit and, well, that's what happens. But his intentions aside, the end result is the same. And of course he used Batman's body, not only to make Batman use a handgun, but also to take a life. And as we all know, Batman has huge issues about handguns and about the lives they take. So this is a very brief, but as I say, very dramatic bit of mind control that no doubt takes a large toll on Batman's life. And since Deadman has taken a life, he himself is in trouble with the goddess Mama Kushna, as he's not allowed to kill people. And Deadman also controlled Batman in the Justice League Dark film. But Deadman was barely able to control his mind in this version because Batman's willpower was so strong. And of course, in the Justice League series, Batman was controlled on other occasions. One sort of time was when a Black Mercy plant attached onto him. Now, these plants trap you in a coma-like state and feed you a fantasy of your perfect world. Also that you'll just stay there and be happy and not fight the fact that it's slowly killing you by feeding off of you. And in Batman's case, it was his dad killing Joe Chill, the man who of course shot his parents, which does kind of make sense. And the other occasions of psychic control in this series are when the girl Ace tries to take control of his mind, but he is able to avoid this by avoiding eye contact, because at this point she needed to look you in the eye in order to take over your mind. Her powers did get stronger later, but this was the only time she really tried to control Batman. And of course, the psychic Dr. Destiny also tried controlling his mind. Now, usually he can only control the sleeping mind, but if you get close enough, he can get into the minds of the living. But although he did manage to get control of most of the League, he failed to get control of Batman, as Batman was able to hum in order to focus his mind enough that Dr. Destiny couldn't get in. And this is one of his many Tibetan meditation techniques. You focus on the and that way you can't have someone get into your mind. He used another such mind-focusing technique in another episode to stop Grodd from controlling his mind. And he also has been able to stop Martian Manhunter from getting in his brain using the same technique. He did so in the show The Batman. And later in The Batman, he actually has special tech installed in his Batcow to stop others from reading and taking control of his brain. The New 52. In the New 52 movie series, Batman is actually controlled a few times. He was very briefly possessed and controlled in the film Justice League vs. Teen Titans, where one of Trigon's children takes possession of his body. However, just before it completely took over, he injected himself with a deadly neurological compound that could have quite easily killed him. But because of the catastrophic damage it causes to the host, it forced the demon to leave his body. And it was a very risky move because, like I said, he could have died, but it did work, and unlike the rest of the League, he didn't actually have to fight the Teen Titans at all, because he made a huge sacrifice not to do so. He was also possessed by a demon in the Justice League Action pilot episodes, though in this version he really had no say in it whatsoever. The demon took over and he couldn't do a thing, as these demons were just way too powerful for anyone to resist. No one in the Justice League could stop them from taking control. And in Batman Bad Blood, Talia al Ghul abducts both him and the Mad Hatter, and she has the Mad Hatter use his tech to take control of Batman's mind. Now the heroes do eventually rescue him, of course, and they think they've got to him in time, but in fact he's actually under Talia's control, and this is all part of her plan. She wants to have Bruce Wayne go back to the Bat family and work as a double agent for her. She does this because Wayne Industries is hosting an expo, which will have lots of world leaders in attendance, and she wants to take control of all of their minds, which essentially gives her control of the whole planet. So it's actually quite a clever plan. Unfortunately for her though, the rest of the Bat family works this out and they stop her, which does lead to some amazing fights, especially between Batman and Nightwing, and it also culminates in Talia trying to get Batman to shoot his adoptive son, which proves to be too dark a deed for the mind control to continue working, and Batman manages to break free of the control and return to normal, which completely ruins Talia's plan, and so she makes her escape. Though it's a short-lived one, as one of her underlings kills her in retaliation for her killing her own son, the Heretic, whom the underling had quite a deep connection to. But I think the best time that he was mind-controlled in this universe was undoubtedly in the film Justice League Dark: Apocalypse War. Now in this story, Darkseid manages to capture the Justice League and takes over a lot of their minds, including Wonder Woman and Martian Manhunter, but they are basically just being controlled using computers and machinery that's been installed in their bodies, and so they are essentially just robots at this point with some fleshy parts. Whereas Batman, however, has his mind completely rewired, and he serves Darkseid loyally as his chief lieutenant, controlling and organising his armies and resources. He is so deeply controlled that he even boom tubes lava from Earth's core to the home of the Green Lanterns, and kills his friend John Stewart in the process, along with a lot of other Green Lanterns and Guardians. And I think I'm actually quite right in saying that this is actually the most brainwashed that Batman has ever been, as on other occasions he does not turn this dark and evil, but on this one he seems fully evil, though he was eventually able to break free. This was when Darkseid ordered him to murder his own son, Damian Wayne, and this was dramatic enough that the mind control couldn't control him anymore. Although oddly enough, he was fine killing billions of humans and ravaging the Earth of all of its resources, including the magma from the Earth's core, which would end up destroying the entire planet itself. And since Damian Wayne was on that planet, it would also kill him as well. I mean, this could be considered a plot hole, or if you prefer, you can think of them as arbitrary deaths happening far away from him. They were just images on his screen while he was organising his army, whereas Damian Wayne's death was right in front of him. So it would therefore be more real to him, as humans always relate more when it's face to face. I mean, we all know it's true. If we're talking to someone on the phone, or talking to someone sitting right next to them, it's a very different experience. Superman the Animated Series. In this fan-favourite episode, we get to see Superman pretend to be Batman. This is because Batman has been missing for a while, and so Superman pretends to be him, so he and Robin can hunt down the real Batman together. And also the villains of Gotham need to believe that Batman is still in the business of stopping them, as what passes for the peace in Gotham still needs to be kept, and the villains are getting a bit too bold. Which is how we get this scene of Batman effortlessly using brute force to take down Bane. And we also discover that one of Superman's lesser known powers is voice mimicry. He has complete control over his vocal cords, and as such he can imitate anyone's voice perfectly, including Batman's.
So how'd you do Batman's voice?
Precise muscle control.
Plus, I have a pretty good ear. Don't do that again.
Now, eventually Superman and Robin discover that Bruce Wayne has had nanites put on his telephone, that then of course went into Bruce Wayne's ears and took control of his mind. And Superman recognises the technology as being made by Brainiac, who is of course one of Superman's villains and is currently trying to get off Earth and back to his station in space. But he needs resources in order to do this, and if there's one thing that Bruce Wayne has, it's resources. All of which means that Batman has not been abducted. Bruce Wayne has, and he has been locked in a bunker with his best scientists, constructing Brainiac a ship to take him back into space, where Brainiac will naturally have access to all of his really advanced technology. Now of course Superman and Robin intervene, and are able to both disable the nanites, which frees Batman from Brainiac's control, and defeat Brainiac himself. And I do love this episode myself, partly because we get to watch Superman play pretend as the Dark Knight, but also because it shows that Batman is not always the target, which kind of makes sense, as a billionaire is a rather obvious target for a villain. Arkham Games. In the groundbreaking Batman Arkham Games, Batman fights a lot of supervillains, whom all have a lot of different abilities, one of which is the Mad Hatter, who is the scientist Jervis Tetch, who invented mind control bands that go on a person's head and give him complete control over their bodies. Now, this allowed for some amazing level design, inspired by Alice in Wonderland. Now, admittedly, the first one in Arkham City is a little bit basic. Batman just fights enemies on a floating pocket watch, which is just a bit simple, though still fun, and I do quite like the way it looks. And we do have to remember that games back then were a lot smaller in scale than they are now. But as these mind control levels advanced with the newer and newer games, they got a lot better. I'd personally say the next one was actually the best, which was of course in Arkham Origins. And although a lot of people think this is the worst game in the series, believe me, this level is truly inspired in its design. I particularly love the T-River Batman crosses on a teacup plate. But these White Rabbit mural puzzles are also fun, along with running along the playing cards and trapezing through the obstacle course. And whilst the gameplay is of course the same as the rest of the game, the modding of the designs is just gorgeous. I mean, I love Alice in Wonderland and I love the way this looked. Now, obviously none of this is actually real, of course, rather sadly. It's just a metaphor for Batman trying to break free of the mind control technology. And of course he was able to force his way out of it by willpower, which is of course us playing the game. It's just a physical representation of Batman's mental struggle for freedom. And although I still think that one's the best, I don't think anyone can deny the fact that the Arkham Knight level is just beautiful. I mean, the way they changed the lighting and saturation in this level is amazing, and I love watching it and playing it every time. And I love the fact that Batman is shrunk down and fighting inside a pop-up book, whilst a gigantic Mad Hatter sits there narrating and watching and turning the pages as we go on to the next fight. It's just brilliantly done, and an incredible display of the creator's imaginative talents. And while it is true that he doesn't get completely mind-controlled, I mean, Batman isn't being sent out on missions for the Mad Hatter like other villains have done to him when they've got control of him, but he still goes off into a wonderful illusionary world that he has to escape in order to be free of the mind control, all by solving puzzles and fighting enemies, all of which makes it one of the most entertaining times that Batman has been brainwashed. Young Justice. Season 1 of Young Justice had an ongoing evil plot, a story that was happening in the background of each episode, and this was a plan by The Light, who was a secret villain organisation, who were trying to assemble what they needed in order to create a mind control device so absolute that it could take over the entire Justice League. And they succeeded. They created Starotech, a combination of sorcery, technology, and a piece of Starro, the giant mind-controlling starfish alien, and when a piece of Starotech was placed on a person, it would sink into their body and then give the bad guys remote control over their bodies. And they succeeded in taking over the minds of the entire Justice League. Minus the younger heroes, of course. This was because they were kind of overlooked because, they're kids, but also because they managed to get away before they were taken control of. Although sadly we don't actually get to see much of mind-controlled Batman, as he was one of these 6 members who went to another planet on a wild rampage. That being said though, he was recalled to deal with the younger heroes when they came to rescue the Justice League, and we do get to see a great hand-to-hand fight between Batman and Robin. It's a simple story, a little too simple to be honest, as the whole story feels a little bit rushed. I mean, they spent an entire season building it up episode by episode. It should have at least been a 2-parter. But that being said, it is still entertaining, and it's always fun to watch sidekicks fight their mentors. Now personally, I really like the Apocalypse War one, as we finally see a dark version of Batman who lets loose his inner demons. But which one of these is your favourite? And are there any other times Batman has been mind-controlled that you think should have been included? Be sure to let us know in the comments, and I'd just like to quickly remind everyone that we have some merchandise available on our store, and to say thanks to all of you who have donated to the Needle Mouse Productions page on Patreon. And as always, thanks for watching, and feel free to subscribe, share, like, and comment.